So, hope you enjoyed the workouts this morning. Hope you're feeling fantastic. And here we've got, for the second year running,
Woo.
welcome back Mr. Richard Smith, aka Keto Pro, going to tell us all about...
We're going to get into that now?
Yeah, there you go. So give him a hand.
Awesome. Cheers, John. Okay. Awesome. Thank you all. So, yeah, Richard Smith, the Keto Pro, as Alan very eloquently said. So this is essentially what I'm trained in. So I came into this through changing my lifestyle, and we'll get into my story as we go along. But not just trained in nutrition, trained in molecular biochemistry, epigenetics, the endocrine system, thyroid. I did all of these things because nutrition wasn't enough. Through my personal journey, I understood that A got me to C, but I wanted to understand the B. Once you start to tell people that cholesterol is actually good for you, saturated fats are actually good for you, salt is good for you, doctors start to ask questions, well, you know, where's your evidence? So that's why I trained in all of these things in order to teach doctors and professors essentially about things like this. And that's what I do. I travel all over the world. I get to speak at fantastic events like Al's. We were discussing earlier the World Nutrition Summit for Prof Noakes. So he's regarded as one of the world's most famous nutrition experts, the guy that invented carb loading. So Prof Noakes is the guy that invented carb loading. He's the reason everybody puts carbohydrate in. In 2015, 2016, he changed his view on carb loading. He literally wrote the book on carb loading. It was called The Law of Running. In 2015, when he was diagnosed, he did literally. He literally wrote the book. So this is the reason that everybody puts carbs in for every form of training, whether it's running or bodybuilding. 2015, 2016, he came out and said, look, I was completely wrong. He was funded by the sugar companies, Gatorade. But the research he did was justified. He was essentially told to measure the performance of sugar, using sugar for athletic performance versus not using it. And sugar is a drug. It is going to improve your performance against not taking any if you're fueled by sugar. So if your body runs on sugar and you don't eat sugar, then you're not going to perform very well. What they never did was tested fat. So when he developed type 2 diabetes in 2015, 2016, he came away from that, and he's now one of the world's biggest advocates. Anyway, I'm digressing, apologies. So disclosures, I'm the founder of the Keto Pro Limited, and I own several other different low-carb keto brands. This is the talk that I gave at the World Nutrition Summit for Prof Noakes. So Prof Noakes, big advocate of a low-carb ketogenic lifestyle. He was taken to court a number of years ago. Was it 2014, 2015? Can't remember. Anyway, 4-year court case because he advised a client, a patient, to remove... to remove carbohydrate because they suffered with type 2 diabetes. So he was taken to court, 4-year court case. The government took him to court, which he won. And they tried to take him to court again after that, and he just wiped the floor with them. And basically, they've adopted a new type of lifestyle now, or they've recognized at least that a low-carb ketogenic lifestyle is in fact one of the healthiest ones to consume, and is part of the South African diet. So this is what Prof Noakes asked me to present on at the World Nutrition Summit last year. So no one else has seen this other than you guys. And it was carnivore unlocking meat-fueled health. But there is a subhead into this that I want to get into. So before we get into that, I know this the majority of you have seen, and know my story, but this used to be me. So I was clinically obese, type 2 diabetic, suffered with chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, arthritic pains, daily debilitating migraines would make me blind, high blood pressure, IBS, teeth issues, covered in boils. I don't know if you can see it in one of these actually, but I mean, it's not the best, but I'm plastered in boils all over my face, all over my back. Changed my diet because it was essentially this. It was a standard diet. I was driven by carbohydrate. I've always eaten protein, but always heavily driven by carb. I was avoiding fats. The more that I stuck to this, the sicker that I became. The more that I tried to be healthy. So I'd wake in the morning, I'd eat a bowl of muesli with a chopped up banana for breakfast, super healthy. Sugar with my sugar. Went to work, I'd have like a croissant or something, and then it would be like brown rice with tuna because we're told that white is bad for us, and then it would be pasta with something. It was all good quality carbohydrates that we're told that we should be consuming, and I just became sicker and sicker the more that I tried to adhere to this. super long story short, I tried every diet and lifestyle you can think of, and none of them worked. I tried everything, and I went to the doctor, and basically he just said, look, you're diabetic, you're going to be diabetic for life. Only just diagnosed, so he offered me medication. I was already on meds for anxiety, depression, migraines, which would make me blind. So I was on 3 different types of medication for my migraines. And at that period, that point in my life, I could barely walk up a flight of stairs without stopping or being severely out of breath. And that was his answer, was basically take your medication. You know, you're getting older and it's a fact of life. I wasn't willing to accept that, but I didn't know what to do. I wasn't trained in nutrition, but I knew the bread bloated me. I knew the bread made me feel bloated and unfit. And I'm sure all of you can attest to this, but as a man, like, we want our chest to be poking out further than our belly. Like, what we don't want is this, we want the chest. So I thought, well, if I could just reduce the bloat on my belly, I'd feel more like a man and have a little bit more confidence. So I removed bread. That was the first thing I did. I took bread out. Within 2 months, I'd lost 2 stone of body fat. I didn't change anything else. I just removed bread, and that was the start of my journey. Super long story short, 12 months later, 107 pound fat loss. I was no longer diabetic, and basically everything that I suffered with had gone away. All of these things occurred within 12 months. This took 4 or 5 years. But I like the picture, so I've decided to use it.
It's a great picture.
So it's so in that picture, I was 3%. That was 2 weeks after competing in men's physique, so same category as Al competes in. I think it was either the British or European champion as a pro. So I went from being unable to walk up the stairs to becoming a pro men's physique athlete, and became #1 in Europe. That was 3%. I used to compete around 2%. There may be a slide in this to show that. I can't remember.
Now to make you looking at the camera. You could, they would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would just. So you've got one.
There's lots of pictures of this. So this was in a photo shoot. So I've got lots of others, but like, I love that pic. It interests. I'm looking at it on the laptop. It looks way better on there than it does.
That's not you.
But yeah. I've come away from bodybuilding. So I was at the point where, for me to progress any further, it would have meant supplementation of anabolics, which I'm not against. But for me, I came into this for health and well-being, so I decided not to pursue that, and I went into endurance sports, and that's why, I look like a little boy now, because I've got into. I've come away from lifting weights. I've come away from doing that also, because that's not healthy either. We can get into this as we go. So now I'm training more towards high rocks type training, although, as we were discussing earlier, I've not lifted or done anything for many, many months. I've done hardly any training for the last 2 years. So it'll come back quick. Once I start lifting, everything else will come back. But my natural physique just takes me back to this now, whereas previously it was preset to being clinically obese. So, we talk about different body types. I've been all 3 of those body types. So after bodybuilding, still packing a little bit of muscle. You can see considerably more muscle in my legs. My legs are absolutely tiny now, so I need to get back into this. But I began competing in endurance sports. I could run 5K in 17 minutes and half marathons in like an hour 20, which is fairly impressive.
We were just saying this, that he was doing it off the back of training for 6 miles a week. I was training for 70 miles a week.
Yeah, but different lifestyles.
This is just running for ketones. I was running for carbs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy stuff. So I mean, the reason that I decided to come away, this is Mikey, a good friend of mine. He is European champion as an amateur in Ironman. So he's #1 in Europe at the 70.3, so the half Ironman, and he's a world record holder. He has one of the quickest times in his age category in Kona. So Kona is where like pro athletes and amateurs compete. And he went on to achieve all of these things. He was vegan when he came to see me. So he came to
a vegan, left a corner.
He came to see me as a vegan. Pulled me to one side after, because I mentioned beef liver. We were talking about liver and how nutrient dense it was. He asked me, where can I find good quality liver?
These people, sorry to interrupt, are doing the vegan because they think it's not because he's like an animal rights campaign. He just thinks it's the healthiest diet.
Yeah.
And we're all looking for optimal to be superhuman. And he obviously found out it didn't work.
Well, veganism, like as you know, we're told that it's clean. We're told that red meat is bad, and we're going to get into all of this. But there's 3 reasons someone would become a vegan. One, for the betterment of their own health, the betterment and the health of the planet, and for animal cruelty. But the fact is, and we won't get into this today because we'll be talking about it for another 2 hours, but the fact is, the best lifestyle for us as human beings is a meat-based lifestyle. The best for the planet is a meat-based lifestyle. And the best for animals is a meat-based lifestyle. A vegan lifestyle compared to a strict carnivore causes over 20 times more deaths. So when people are vegans and they think they're not causing harm to animals, they fly product in from all over the world. So that's causing massive CO2 emissions. You're destroying a whole ecosystem. So monocropping, yeah. So basically you send the combine harvester, the tractor in, turns up the soil, kills all the microbes. They're not fertilizing it with animal feces, so the microbes die off. And then they spray the crops with glyphosate, which is a herbicide which kills all the microbes, and the birds die off. There was a study done by the Smithsonian Museum a couple of years ago, which showed that over 10 million birds die in the States alone through glyphosate usage, spraying crops, with over 100 million estimated to be damaged and injured. So that's just one aspect, but we won't get too much into that today. But look, again, we were discussing this about incremental journeys. So this is how I began. I started with low carb, then I became dirty keto, standard, clean. I've done what Al does with cyclical refeeds. I'm a sugar addict. I want to put carbs in. So I've always experimented with trying to put them in. They don't work as well for me.
Because you're an addict. I'm not with
Yeah,
carb. Doesn't crave me or nothing, you see.
I can't, if we open a pack of biscuits or chocolate is my thing. If we open up, a box of chocolates, I can't have 1 or 2.
Dr. Sarah said that'll start her addiction test. If you can have 1, fine.
Yeah. But I'll do the box, and then I'll be looking for any other chocolate in the house. And if there's none there, I'm driving to the shop to get more.
Dedication.
So it's... I've been known to drive to McDonald's at 2 in the morning to get my fix. So this was the progression for me. So I became strict, more animal-based. So this was pretty much 4 to 5 years. The rest then were 5, 6, oh my God, I don't even know how long we've been doing this now, probably 13 years. But now I'm pretty much what we call lion. So all I eat is animal proteins and fats. So I'm pretty much 0 carb. But what I wanted to get into today, which Al asked me to talk about, was my theory that carnivore is the ultimate ketogenic lifestyle. As you know from Al, it's incredibly healthy. It can reverse all sorts of illnesses and diseases. But what I put to you today, and this is what I put to Prof. Noakes, is that the elite of the elite is a carnivore lifestyle. It doesn't mean that you can't eat carbohydrates ever, but predominate in this from at least an ancestral approach is my argument for optimal health. So many people think that I'm genetically gifted to go from being clinically obese to 2% body fat in competition and then being able to go into running. I used to lose at everything. I would never win at everything, and I think that's why I was so competitive. But it's changing my diet that it's allowed me to do these things. This was my old man. He died 62, I think, so early 60s. But you can see, you can see me in his face. This was my fate. So when people say, oh, it runs in my family, the only thing that runs in your family is the fucking food that your parents feed you. So it's, we eat what our parents feed us. So that's what runs in the family. Genetics run in the family, and you can't change your genome, but you can express your genome differently. So you can't change your DNA, but you can essentially take photocopies of different parts of your DNA. And we'll get into this really briefly. I don't want to bore you too much, but this is called epigenetics. And essentially, it allows us to flick the switch onto accessing the best part of our genome. So if we were to, Al, Greek god, it's with the best will in the world, you're probably not going to ever be an endurance athlete. No. You could become a really good one through the lifestyle, but you're genetically predispositioned to be well built. So we can compete at a high level against people who are genetically gifted, but for those of us who are not, we can get pretty close to it through accessing different parts of our DNA. And what this, I hope you guys are going to stay awake for this, because I'm going to throw a shitload of information at you. Sorry, I hope I don't bore you too much. These are our chromosomes. These are found in every nucleus of every cell in the body. If we were to pull these out and tear them apart, This is called the chromatin. You don't need to remember any of this. I'm not gonna quiz you later. But this is the DNA, and these are histone proteins. And this is how we wrap our DNA into the cell. Because if I was to reach into any one of your cells and tear it apart, it would stand over 6 feet tall. 6 feet in every single cell in your body. I can't even comprehend that. But it's wrapped around these proteins called histones. Countless amounts of times throughout the day, we take photocopies of our DNA, and then we send these photocopies as mRNA to a part of the cell called the ribosome. And the ribosome reads these. These are called codons or nucleotides. Collectively, they're called codons. They're all different. And they attract an amino acid. So they signal the attraction of one amino acid. The next would be a different amino acid. And as this runs through, these amino acids, which we get from animal proteins, bind together. They create what we call a peptide. So you guys are probably all familiar with peptides. So we make these in the body, and then they go on to create human proteins. These human proteins heal, build, and repair every cell in the body. What that means in simple terms, falling asleep already. What this means in simple terms, see that you're not keto. You need some ketones there. What this means in simple terms, we eat protein, we break the protein down into amino acids, and this builds every single cell in the body. I'm not just talking muscle, I'm talking hair, skin, nails, liver, kidney, eyes, everything. The problem with this is that if we're in this situation, like where are we going to take a good quality photocopy there? Like we can't, because the chromatin is folded. So, and what causes this is something called HDACs. And then there are other compounds called HATs, histone acetyltransferase. So the histone acetyltransferase, the histone deacetylase, one causes the chromatin to fold and the other causes it to open. Neither is good or bad, but we want the right amount. What happens when the HDACs are in too high a level, then the chromatin is constantly folded. So you try taking a good quality photocopy there. We can't take one, so we take shit copies, and then we make shit proteins, and then we make shit cells in the body, and our bodies are a pile of shit, essentially. So what I'm going to teach you today is what allows us to open and express this, to be open and apart and available for expression. And it's diet. So at least 75%, the research says 75%, I would argue 95%. Training, really important. As I say, I haven't done hardly any training at all in the past 12 months. I need to get my arse into gear. But 75% is attributed to this through diet and lifestyle, but particularly diet. So what diet? So we always think that vegetables and fruits are incredibly beneficial. Broccoli. Who thinks broccoli is healthy? Used to. So I used to. Who used to think broccoli was healthy? And if you don't know, yeah. So broccoli.
I didn't know broccoli wasn't healthy.
Yeah. Okay. There we are. So well, look. You take from this what you want.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to show you now is, I'm going to show you something on the next couple of slides. But I want you to understand what genotoxic means. Genotoxic means damaging to the DNA. Okay. Compounds in broccoli. We find compounds such as isothiocyanates and things like sulforaphane, which we're told are good for us. So these are compounds found in broccoli and brassica vegetables. Now this experiment looked at basically juicing these compounds and what the effect was over a period of time. And essentially, in fact, if I zoom in on the end, so genotoxic effect, so the first two words, genotoxic effect, of the juices are due to specific constituents of cruciferous plants such as the glucosinolates and or the breakdown products, in particular the isothiocyanates, which we've just shown are in broccoli. The present findings clearly indicate that cruciferous vegetables contain DNA damaging constituents. Broccoli literally damages your DNA. It breaks DNA through a process called clastogenesis. That's fact. That's what broccoli does. And I'm not making shit up. This isn't like, oh, does it happen? When you eat broccoli, you fucking break your DNA. The theory is that it builds back in such a way that it's beneficial, but it doesn't. Eating broccoli literally damages your DNA. If that protein synthesis that we just looked at, that those photocopies are essential for healing, building, and repairing your body, why would you want to break down and damage your DNA? So
what are cruciferous? What are other examples of cruciferous vegetables?
So broccoli, spinach, kale, cabbage.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh,
What about cauliflower?
We'll get into these. I've got a couple of other slides.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
Popeye was wrong. He lied.
pop.
Damn.
You've just taken one of my lines. So look, but we say that broccoli is good for cancer. And yeah, it can be good for cancer. But the thing with chemotherapy is that it kills every cell in the body. In fact, it causes all of these things. So think about it. You know, if broccoli contains sulforaphane, which can help fight cancer, well, it's also going to cause. If we were to take a chemotherapy tablet, you wouldn't take a chemotherapy tablet unless you had cancer. So the question is, well, would you eat broccoli if you didn't have cancer? And that doesn't mean that you can't eat broccoli ever. But you know, if we're looking at optimal health, then we want to be pulling all of these levers, all of these 1%. So isothiocyanates, they also quickly convert into thiocyanate, which is a dietary goitrogen, and it prevents the absorption of iodine at the thyroid. So this is one of the main reasons, in my opinion, that most people, or a lot of women in particular, suffer with hyperthyroidism.
What is that?
So it's low T3. So, in effect, that isn't a true analogy, because you can have low T3 and not be hypothyroid. But from a normal perspective, basically, their thyroid isn't functioning in the way that it should. And the isothiocyanates, the sulforaphane in broccoli and cruciferous veg, directly compete with that. Things like carrots, they'll do the same thing through a different mechanism. Anything that contains beta-carotene is going to cause a problem. Carrots contain 0 vitamin A, none at all.
Bugs Bunny lied.
Say it again.
Bugs Bunny lied. Yeah.
Bugs Bunny lied, because the beta-carotene is a precursor. It's not true retinol. So retinol is true vitamin A. So what happens is we eat the plant version of vitamin A. We need to convert it into the active form of retinol. And in order to do this, we use T4, which is the precursor to T3. So all of the supplements that I've taken over the years that contain beta-carotene, they directly inhibit. I'm not saying they go into, but they can contribute to causing thyroid issues. So if you're, a woman in the modern world, you're eating clean, you're eating everything that you're told to do, you're eating your cruciferous vegetables, you're taking your multivitamin, boom, you have hypothyroidism, and you wonder why, and now you've got to take medication. These things didn't exist a few hundred years ago. We have literally done everything that we've been told since like the 1950s, and we're eating less red meat, we're eating more white meat, we're eating more grains, we're eating less saturated fats, more seed oils. Cancer, diabetes, autoimmune disease, all of these are through the roof and continuing to rise, yet most of us are actively trying to be fit and healthy. So whatever we're doing is not working, and all you need to do is take a step back and look at these things from an outside perspective. So what are the arguments with, in fact, I don't have the spinach thing in this, but we can get into that later. One of the arguments is antioxidants, where plants contain antioxidants. And the theory behind it is that they allow us or give us a hormetic effect. Plants do not contain antioxidants. Plants contain pro-oxidants. And again, this isn't disputed. So we eat a plant, it's a pro-oxidant. So the body will activate a pathway called NRF2. In fact, we'll get on to this now. So a hormetic response effectively is we consume a toxin and the body will increase antioxidant pathways because we've consumed a toxin. But there are different types of hormetic responses. So like working out is a hormetic response, but that's environmental, cold water dipping, red light therapy, so on. All of these are good for us. But then those are environmental hormesis, and then there's molecular hormesis, which is modulated through transcription factor NRF2. So if you eat a plant, you activate a pathway called NRF2, nuclear factor erythroid 2 related factor 2. I'm going to test you on that after. I'm joking. So NRF2, you eat a plant, you activate NRF2. The body then will increase glutathione through the conjugation of, so it basically goes through, it'll increase glucuronic acid to remove toxins from the body. It's called glucuronidation. So we see an increase in glutathione. So we eat plants and we see antioxidant markers increase because we've just consumed a toxin. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's and again, that's not disputed. It's a hormetic response. The problem is when you overexpress that NRF2 pathway, and it does work. So that's how medication works. So if when you're sick and you take medication, it will do this, and you'll be better, which is fine. Plants, in my opinion, are medications. But should you take medication if you're not sick? Like I wouldn't take medication if I wasn't. I wouldn't take it for the fun of it. So I'm not against the consumption of plants, and I think we've used plant compounds our entire existence for medicinal purposes. But I don't believe that they're part of an optimal lifestyle. I think that we would have consumed them as a medicine as and when we required. That pathway, I'm gonna flick the switch now. Is this the one? I think so. So NRF2 can be activated through other things. Now, the same pathway. We can activate NRF2 through tobacco, exhaust fumes, arsenic, lead, mercury. So what I'm saying, and this is a bold statement, you will see the same activation, the same pathway as eating broccoli, spinach, kale, as you would from doing all of these things. How can one be beneficial and the other one not be beneficial? And again, I'm not saying there aren't situations in which we want to do that. If you're going to consume, medication to help repair or to combat an illness, then, plants are fantastic. That's what plants are, in my opinion. And I would do so. I would consume certain plant compounds for medicinal purposes. So the key is, if raising glutathione is the aim of NRF2, why not just become ketogenic? When you're ketogenic, you increase these pathways naturally without activating NRF2, at least as you adapt. Initially, it's a stress to the body and you do activate NRF2. Once you adapt, you no longer overexpress this. So if the antioxidant pathway is the goal, then why not just become ketogenic? So like Al's approach, this is why Al's never sick. Al doesn't need to eat plants, really. I know you do, but it's berries mostly and things, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, it's 80% meat-based.
Yeah. So, to me, that's carnivore.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if 80% of your units of energy are coming from protein, that makes you carnivore. Yeah. And I call them units of energy because calories don't really exist, at least not in the context that you think they do. And we can get into that as we go. It is in the slide. Sorry.
I was asking about cauliflower.
Oh, cauliflower. Somebody mentioned spinach.
Yeah.
Spinach, Popeye. But Popeye said that spinach is full of iron. It's full of iron, but you and I can't access it. The human body needs heme iron, and this produces a type of iron that the body can't use. We need to convert it. So we can convert some, but the amount is very small. So the question would be, well, why not eat more? So
this just is crapped out, essentially?
Yeah.
I would wonder if you know anything about what happens to the rest of the mineral iron in the plants. If you consume it this way, because you absorb some, you can manage some, but you have to consider that iron is a highly oxidative stress heavy metal.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's.
Anything about that?
I've looked into the oxidative stress, the ROS on all sorts of plants. We can get into that on another call if you want. I can't. Yeah, but it basically.
I would actually, that's what I mean. I would actually expect that the excess iron, if
oxidative stress,
would actually cause a lot of harm.
Yeah. Like, well, it's got to go somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, but everyone is complaining about lead and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's still trace amounts in most contexts. But this is not trace amounts anymore.
It's not trace amounts, and it's not being used. So we're not using it for the purpose that we're consuming it.
Pak choy, wasn't there? One lady she consumed
Spinach,
3 kilos of pak choy and died.
Yeah.
It's a different anti-nutrient, but still.
Yeah.
And rhubarb, people have died from
Rhubarb?
Rhubarb is the highest in oxalate.
Yeah, have I got one on rhubarb?
It oxidizes the body.
Basically, it does to the cells what rust is. So you see,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Literally, like iron is supposed to do oxygen.
Yeah. So what damage is it causing? But the biggest concern from spinach is oxalate. So spinach contains a compound called oxalic acid. Under a microscope, light microscopy, that's what it looks like. They're raphides, they're needles. So we consume these will find out their toxins. So they're removed from circulation and they're stored in tissues in the body to remove from circulation to save your life. But they'll find their way into your hands, your joints. So it will give you what you think is like arthritic pains, breast tissue. So it's one of the main drivers of things like breast cancer, thyroid cancer. It can manifest itself anywhere. And it's the main driver of kidney stones. So kidney stones is driven by things like oxalate.
Spinach juice.
Yeah, me too. When I was like proper keto in the early days,
I used to walk to the school with the first kid with so much stomach pain, thinking, it's working.
It's working.
It's working.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I used to do spinach and kale smoothies with turmeric, which is more oxalate, and black pepper. And the black pepper, it blocks the pathways that allow you to remove it from your body. So they're toxic. So if we look at different types of spinach, so death from oxalate has been reported from as little as 4,000. I did find a study that was 3,000. So that's a low amount. When you look at how much is in a typical bag of spinach per 100 grams, so New Zealand spinach, I mean, you're talking half the amount there.
I used to drink
You know?
500 in a bag.
Yeah.
Just put it in the machine, you easily drink
You're
it.
hard to kill.
I'm hard to kill.
The thing is, if you're fit and healthy, it's unlikely to cause an issue if you do it once or twice, but it's going to have an accumulative effect and it's going to build up in the body. But effectively, even at the lowest end, a pack of spinach in the UK comes in 200 gram pouches. So if I was to take 10 packs of spinach, blend them up and drink it, it's likely to cause death. But the thing is, people are going to say, well, who's going to drink 10 packs of spinach? But the question is, if I was to give you a glass that contained rat poison, and I told you to drink it, would you drink it? No. But if I was to reduce the rat poison to a tiny amount, fill it with stevia, and if I was to fortify it with vitamins and minerals, which is what a multivitamin is, and all of these other drinks that you see on the market. Now, this is the nicest drink you've ever tasted. If I was to make you that, but it contains a tiny, tiny little bit of rat poison in, are you going to drink it?
Does it have caffeine?
It's got here we are. It's got caffeine. Would you drink it? No. So that's my argument when people say, well, it's all about moderation.
Vegans argue that and say, well, let's help. How would
But they're not. They're not. They. I mean, do you?
They just ignore it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, these things are accumulative, and a vegan lifestyle is healthier than a standard lifestyle. It is healthier.
Because it's not ultra processed.
Because they've removed lots of the toxic compounds already, and people who are vegan tend to be more active. They're practicing yoga, they're out early in the morning, they're grounding, they adopt all of these other things, which is fantastic, but they believe... And they lose weight, but they also lose muscle and bone, and that's a fact. Their brains shrink, and these again are facts. We can prove this. Bone mineral density, muscle mass.
Then they go Democrat.
But they can live that way. They can live that way for 5 years before the negative effects start to kick in. But then, because they've been seeing benefits for so long coming into that, they don't put it down to the lifestyle. But the body can only store like iron and B12 for a couple of years. So 5 years tends to be the tipping point. They get to 5 years, then the health starts to decline. And then they need to supplement with iron and B12, and then they continue moving forward. But all the behind the scenes, they're building up oxalate, they're building up damage, suffering with kidney stones, gallbladder issues, diabetes, they're losing bone mineral density, so on and so forth. So kale, we're told, is high in vitamin C, which it is. It contains more vitamin C than citrus fruits, around 93 milligrams per 100 grams. But it's blocked by another compound called flavonoids. So there are flavonoids within the kale which actively blocks the majority of the vitamin C found within. So it's not the best source of vitamin C.
They push flavonoids as a good thing. Contains flavonoids. You're like, yeah.
Yeah, but again, so flavonoids, they're endocrine disruptors.
Yeah.
So they literally stop your body's hormones from being produced and working effectively.
Really? Because flavonoids are, the study we were talking earlier about during, flavonoids, for instance, are in cannabis, and they promote anti-inflammatory, stuff, all that. So does that mean that that's how cannabis affects the body as well?
So so cannabis works along a number of things, but the flavonoids within, they can be beneficial because they can reduce oxidative stress to a point. Yeah. But again, we're talking about overconsumption. So if that's something you're using every day, so if you're sick and you're going to use that, it's going to elicit the responses that your body needs in order to fight something. But the fact is that if you're already healthy, if you live an Al's lifestyle, then you won't need to put that crap in. Because you're not getting sick essentially, and there are other ways. But there is an argument to put fruit and things in, and we'll get into that as we go. But these compounds, they're endocrine disruptors. They literally prevent your body from working effectively. They're digestive inhibitors. So flavonoids, they're groups of polyphenols, things like isoflavones. They're digestive inhibitors which directly block the absorption of vitamin C that you're trying to consume that compound for in the first place. So these things, even though these plants contain certain amounts of compounds, the body doesn't have access to them. And again, they're endocrine disruptors. So these are things that cause infertility in men. They reduce sperm count. They activate the 17B estradiol receptor, blocking thyroid peroxidase, which we need to make thyroid hormone. So again, another mechanism for thyroid.
Testosterone's dropped as
Yeah.
well,
There is another argument for that as well.
because it's lower now than ever before.
But it's, yeah, well, in most people, yeah. But you and I,
Yeah.
like my testosterone is only around 11.
My testosterone doubled though, going keto.
So mine shot through the roof.
Mine went to 19, it was 10.
Yeah. It'll do that because of lipolysis. You're breaking down stored body fat. So it's going to fuel testosterone. But testosterone is also used to produce red blood cells. It's also used in glycolysis. So when you come away from those things, your red blood cells live longer. You're not using sugar. And now that you're like single figure body fat, the body doesn't need as much testosterone, it becomes more efficient. So your body makes less not because you're out of range, it's because you need this much to carry out the same amount of work as this much did when you were eating shit food. Like, think of it like glucose and insulin. When you eat carb, your insulin's up there.
Yeah.
When you remove it, your insulin becomes, because you become more sensitive. Basically, there's more bang for the buck, effectively. And again, it interferes with catecholamine methyltransferase, increase in estrogen, so it leads to like man boobs in men, for example, and loads of issues in women. And they also cause inflammation. So it can block certain pathways, but the overconsumption will increase things like interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. These are inflammatory cytokines. So the very thing that you're consuming to block the inflammation can end up fueling it. So show of hands, who's consumed turmeric before because of anti-inflammatory benefits? Yeah. So, and it can work. And what we're told is to consume the turmeric with black pepper. As Frank said earlier, the black pepper, the piperine, blocks phase 2 detoxification in the liver. It doesn't increase the efficacy of the turmeric. It stops your body from carrying out a natural process of removing that compound. Your body's trying to excrete it, and you're blocking
Why
your body's...
Put it in, because they do put it in.
Well, they put it in, so it forces your body to uptake it. But your body's trying to tell you it doesn't want it. We're literally going against like natural biology.
I take turmeric if I feel as if, and when I say I don't get sick, you can get a sore throat, but then that's when I would take them herbs.
So again, you're taking it for the right reasons. You're taking it for medicinal purposes.
I never get sick.
But you don't take it every day.
Exactly.
So you take it when you're sick.
Yeah.
It's carried out its work. Yeah.
Turmeric,
And then you come away from it.
and then done. 2 days.
But this is the problem. People take it every day. And then, I've been in situations where I've suffered with inflammation. I've taken a shitload of turmeric and it's worked. And then I keep taking it. But then, this inflammation comes back. That's because I haven't stopped taking it. So now the turmeric's actually fueling the inflammation. So plants, they're not the devil. None of these things are evil. I'm not telling you not to eat any plants. It's about understanding, at least in my opinion, what plants are there for. So medicinal purposes. It's not just to these things. Soy is high in genistein, quercetin in onions. I have an intolerance to onion. I can't consume it. I can't consume black pepper. Any of you suffer with cold sores? So I do. So I can't consume black pepper because black pepper, the piperine, yeah. So that increases the inflammatory pathway. So basically, pepper will drive cold sores. So I can't consume pepper. And berries and anthocyanin can be beneficial. And again, we'll get into this. But they're all, when overconsumed, they can be toxins. Flaxseed, something I used to consume a shitload of previously. Flax seeds are very high in something called cyanogenic glycoside. So cyanide. Flaxseed can kill you from cyanide poisoning. So we think this is an old thing, but back in 2017, there was a case of 2 people dying in, I think it was Uganda, was it Uganda? It's on there somewhere. Basically from cassava root because of the cyanide found in this plant that the local tribe
My
eat.
cancer diet that we put him on was ground flaxseed with cottage cheese to kill the cancer.
Yeah, which makes sense.
With
Yeah.
cyanide.
Yeah.
And I gave him almond kernels, not almond, apricot kernels.
Apricot really high in cyanide.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but effectively, you're causing harm to the cancer, but again, you're damaging other cells in the body.
Exactly, but not as bad as chemo.
Yeah. But as you know now,
Yeah, we had the chemo
Well,
first.
I
that
would
was
call
the
this a natural chemo because
Exactly.
it's straight.
It's the Budwig diet.
Mm.
They're on a Budwig.
But it is a chemo because it's just it's a plant source chemo because it strikes evenly over all cells. It will kill all cells equivalently. The only reason it kills the cancer cell more is the same reason a regular pharma cytotoxin, right? kills it because it increases the totality of the oxidative stress, and then you go over a threshold and then it dies. A better therapy would be if you can find anything like hyperbaric oxygen, for example, that does not really harm the regular cell, but it only harms the
Or start the sugar,
the
start the
non-breathing cell, right?
Or stop eating sugar.
So it's just an example of a selective therapy.
Again, I didn't
That's
know
what you
much
use.
then, so you throw
Of
everything
course.
at it.
No,
You
it's
do, yeah.
not that it was a wrong move to do, but I mean, I think it's just analogous with a manufactured toxin for cells. You know? It does sort of the same thing because cyanide is the purest cell poison you can buy.
Well, it's one of the most toxic compounds to humans. Yeah.
It's a bunch. But that's and most of the energy drinks too, right?
What the
Cyanide.
Yeah, like the B12.
Oh, so it can, yeah. So basically, B12, you can have so methylcobalamin, or you can have cyanocobalamin.
Most of them have cyanide.
Cyan, yeah, yeah.
It's like 99% of them have
It's
cyanide.
bound to a cyanide molecule. Yeah, and yeah, it's crazy. So even when you see things like B12, there are different types. So this isn't an old thing.
Even the multivitamins, you'll see some
Cyano, yeah.
The
multivitamins.
cheaper ones.
Bro, even the expensive ones have that shit.
Insanity.
Oh, it's crazy.
In America, bro, most of them have it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So if we look at the amount of cyanide that it takes to kill an adult human being, it's around 0.5 to 3.5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. That means someone who weighs 70 kilograms, 35 milligrams is at the lower end of what could potentially cause death to an adult human being. Super unlikely, especially if you're fit and healthy, but the possibility's there. So if we look at flaxseed, 100 grams of raw flaxseed can release 15 to 40 milligrams of hydrocyanic acid if fully hydrolyzed, which basically means that if we were to look at this as being a full pack of flaxseed, potentially at the lower end, that's how much flaxseed it could take to kill a human if you blended it and drunk it. So what happens if we were to look at the higher end? That's the higher end, 9 teaspoons. I think it's 9, is it? So where am I? Do I got 9 on there? A tablespoon is roughly 10, meaning 9 tablespoons. So potentially 9 tablespoons. Super unlikely. Like if you were to do this, it's not going to kill you because you're all fit and healthy. But if you're sick and you're trying to get healthy and you're consuming these products, then you're just further fueling, your body's toxicity and you're causing harm to cells in the body. I used to add this to my smoothies. I used to add that to everything because I thought it was a good source of omega-3s. But there's no omega-3 in there. It's not in human form, as you know. We need EPA and DHA. That contains ALA. That's not the type of omega-3 the human body needs. So if you're trying to eat nuts and seeds from omega-3s, you're wasting your time. That conversion is close to 0. Wow. If you want omega-3s, think of oily fish, sardines, salmon, mackerel, probably the best. But if you don't like fish, lamb contains 10 times more omega-3 than beef does.
Wow.
Lamb, yeah.
How does it compare to fish?
It's not as good as fish, but then if you like eating lamb, then per 100 grams it's not as good.
Yeah.
But if I eat fish, I like fish, but I won't eat a kilo of fish.
Yeah.
But I'll eat a kilo of lamb, or half a kilo, So it's I opt for lamb and things. But
Do you know if it's concentrated in the meat or in the pure fat?
In the fat.
In the fat.
Yeah. So it's obviously in the meat, in the fat, but it's the fat is critically important.
Shot, eat the fat.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Always eat the fat.
Wow.
So another thing now, cytosterolemia, and you can Google this. In fact, one of you can check on your phone if you want. Cytosterolemia is a condition in which fatty substances, lipids from vegetable oil, nuts, and seeds, and other plant-based accumulates in the blood and tissues. These phytosterols, which are plant defense chemicals, they narrow the arteries and block the flow, increasing chance of heart attack and cardiovascular disease. We're told to eat all of these things. We're told to eat vegetable oil, and we're told to eat nuts and seeds. The plant sterols and plant stenols are literally the driver of cardiovascular disease. It's not the saturated fat. So there's another slide on this when we get to fats. But this is basically what nuts and seeds are effectively driving. So it's not the natural fats. We'll get more into that. But if you Google cytosterolemia, it's a genetically inherited condition in which the sufferer can't remove the plant sterols or the phytosterols to the capacity that you and I can. So it drives early onset cardiovascular disease. And again, so just to knock this home, apple seeds contain amygdalin, which is another type of cyanide. It breaks down to hydrocyanic acid when the seeds are crushed. Like, you're unlikely to eat the seeds of an apple, but I used to. I used to put them into my blender. I'd chuck like 2 or 3 apples in there, blend them up, and I'd add other stuff to it with the seeds. But on the lower end, 35 milligrams of cyanide can be found in as little as 58 apple seeds. 6 to 14 apples, again, highly unlikely, especially if you're fit and healthy, to cause an issue, but that's what you're putting in, potentially a lethal dose of cyanide from apples. So the apple itself, okay, seeds full of toxins. And then there's this study which looks at, basically, it was a study that removed fruits and vegetables, essentially. The overall effect of the 10-week study without dietary fruits and vegetables was a decrease in oxidative stress to DNA oxidation. So when they removed nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables, there was a reduction in oxidative stress.
It's like the opposite.
So it's the opposite, yeah. So it's literally the opposite. So I'm going to break some hearts with this one. So.
Don't touch my coffee.
Go past this one. Go
Richard.
Okay, give a big hand for us.
Thank you, Richard. Same time next year.
100%. Look, for full disclosure, I love coffee. I've drunk a coffee today. I use it for, like, it is a stimulant. It blocks the adenosine receptor. I came off coffee, as Frank knows, like I came off coffee for 2 years. Healthiest I've ever felt. But like, I need coffee. Like, I enjoy it. You know, like when you meet friends and stuff, it's a social thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling you not to drink coffee, but all I'm doing is making you aware, right?
We can't quit the coffee.
So look, I've drunk it today. I'm going to drink it tomorrow. But then, like, I reduce the amount that I drink, and sometimes I'll do spells without it to clear things out. The reason is of a compound called acrylamide. It's not so much the caffeine. The caffeine can be damaging, but there are benefits to that as well. Acrylamide is formed during the roasting process. So we create acrylamide. And in California, Prop 65, any of you guys familiar? I'm sure you guys in the States are familiar with Prop 65. This was slapped with a Prop 65 warning in, I think it was 2014 or something, or 2015. That's the second Prop 65 warning that it's been slapped with. Starbucks have been sued successfully for their coffee causing cancer, because acrylamide drives cancer. But it's the reason that I came off it was that it's a potent neurotoxin.
Just a quick question on that. Is that coffee in general, or does it depend on the quality of the brand?
So it's higher in certain coffees, but it's even in mycotoxin-free coffee, it's still going to be there. It's still there in decaf. So even when you take the caffeine out, it's still. But it's the roasting, yeah. But it's not found in tea.
It's going to be better, but still.
Right. I actually did some checking on this, and it turns out that the heavy roast, a lot of it dissipates again.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's right. It's the opposite what you would expect.
Wait, say it again. I didn't hear you.
The heavier the roast, the
Yeah,
better.
the espresso roasts are actually healthier than, and the worst one they found was this Nescafe, you know, the instant coffee.
Instant,
roast
that's
is
it.
better than regular coffee. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So I have
So-
4 Sigmatic organic, that I can't remember the roasting on it. Is that better?
I'm not familiar with the brand, but if it's a quality brand,
It's got the
Then-
mushrooms and it's organic, mold free.
so mycotoxin free,
Yeah.
you're going to be on a winner. And I think if, you know, as you rightly say, with the quality of coffee, the better the quality, the lower the acrylamide.
But if I'm out, of course, you just have
Yeah.
a coffee.
Of course you do. There's a reason that I came off coffee though. Like a few years ago, I was running in my daughter's sports day event. And I was racing, so my daughter nominated me. So I turned up in my shirt, and I was in like my works clothes, you know, and my shoes on and everything. Still, I'm up against parents that don't do any training, so I thought, oh, I'm going to piss this, you know. And then the whistle went off, and I quickly realised that I was last. And I was struggling. I won the race, only just. But when I watched the video back, I noticed my leg was doing this as I was running. And the day after, I was trying to walk up a flight of stairs. I couldn't lift my leg above that, so I was tripping over stairs. My diet's really clean, so I knew that it could only be the coffee. So that's what led me down this rabbit hole of acrylamide, because it's a potent neurotoxin. It's a big driver of things like ALS. It damages your DNA, so motor neurons disease, it causes issues with that. So I came off that, Within 2 days, I ran a PB in a half marathon after being unable to walk up a flight of stairs because of and that's why I came off it 2 years ago. But again, I'm an addict. It's crept back in, and I fucking love coffee, especially with cream.
Coffee, Richard,
but
about 10 years ago, I went on to matcha.
Yeah.
I drank a lot of
The
matcha.
green stuff?
Yeah.
I don't really like matcha.
Green.
Too much. Japanese, isn't it, matcha? Is that
Someone
bad?
was big on the head. She was,
Soon is gonna be bad.
Can't say it.
It's a special shot. It's
She's
bound
in
to
China.
sometimes.
Yeah, it's bound to have some.
Heavy,
Okay.
heavy metals and
Yeah.
all sorts of all teas. Which is
Yeah.
like
You can
saying
drink
the
your
finest,
I drank.
highest
I
range
know that.
Japanese matcha.
You're right.
Yeah.
Bro,
Well,
I used to
yeah,
drink
and tannins, and
Yeah.
so I mean, it's pick your poison.
Yeah, I never knew.
Most, bro, all
Electrolytes,
very
like genuinely, like that's what I drink. Like I drink.
Yeah.
No,
Makes sense.
it's you can drink that, but if you're drinking too much, it is high in carb. So it's you can drink. You know, if you're out and like you only have access to that's going to be fine. I drink electrolytes all day. I drink the BHB, so the raspberry bomb, exogenous ketones. I'll drink them. But
question for you. Are you familiar with the brand Keto? It's like these little shots. Keto IQ?
yeah. Ketone IQ.
Is it Ketone IQ or Keto IQ? Ketone IQ? What's your take on I'm not, you know, I know.
So I make a product that is the same as this. So these are called
Here's the pitch.
Here's the pitch.
No, it's not a pitch.
It's-
It's a competitive edge.
So those are ketone acids, and effectively they are butanediol. What is it? You said it to me the other day. It's butanediol something or other, but it's alcohol. So it can, like when we made it for testing, and we were tested on the athletes I work with. Their performance dropped, but it's a ketone delivery system. So we make ketones, but in a powder form that you add to water, and that basically is pure BHB that increases athletic performance.
Right.
So teams like in the Tour de France are using ketones, but Ketone IQ have got all the money.
I bought a lot and I didn't feel it.
It's crap.
Alex
Yeah.
didn't feel it.
So we developed a range of stomach.
medicine.
The other
It's-
one,
and it burns, and it's-
K4, I feel. No, the ketone, what's it called?
Ketonator.
Ketonate.
Ketone,
Yeah, you could-
Which that was the original one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Ketone IQ, so they ripped them off. Dominic D'Agostino talks about it. He's a bit of an expert when it comes to ketones, isn't he?
Yeah.
But he says the actual salts can be better.
Oh, the salts are definitely better. Yeah. 100%.
The sauce that you smell or which one?
That's what I was
Oh,
thinking.
so the ones that I make, so they're called ketone salts. They're powders. You just add to water, or have we got raspberry bomb here?
No.
No. So there's there are electrolytes in there, but it's. I was going to try to get some samples over, but yeah, we did last year, didn't we?
Yeah.
So awesome. They're like next level stuff. So
Is it shipped to the States?
yeah. But you'll need to do the raspberry bomb. Yeah.
For you they will.
It's on my
For us, we will. Right, what are we on?
If you order today, yes.
Right, let's get on with this because we've got a couple of slides to get into.
The coffee, you know?
So grains, like we're also told that grains are beneficial, but grains are sprayed with a herbicide called glyphosate. Glyphosate blocks the second step in a pathway called the shikimate pathway. The shikimate pathway is what allows us to make tryptophan, tyrosine, phenylalanine. These are aromatic amino acids. There's a study there that I've popped in. I hate using studies for a number of reasons, but I've popped that in there. But the problem is that because studies, they can be faked, essentially. But I work in the real world, but for the sake of that, I've put it in. Grains are also high in phytic acid and lectins, which can block the absorption of zinc, iron, and magnesium by as much as 100%. So if your goal is to produce your neurotransmitters, dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, serotonin, melatonin, we need many of these cofactors. So by consuming grains, we literally block those cofactors and our ability to optimize our neurotransmitters. 95% of the neurotransmitters are created in the gut. So eating grains, bread, pasta, rice, you literally, So and this is why I think depression and anxiety is through the roof. And I think that was the driver for me, for my anxiety and depression. When I took them out, they went away. You can make them through other pathways, but there's more to this, so we'll get into it. So these grains also contain the lectins and phytates, as we mentioned. They bind to the epithelial cells that line the gut, and they cause the release of this molecule called zonulin, which basically causes a gap to appear in the tight junction between the cells. This allows undigested proteins to travel into the bloodstream where they shouldn't be, which drives autoimmune disease. Everyone you know who suffers with autoimmune disease, it comes from intestinal permeability, and the main driver in modern diet are grains, bread, pasta, rice. So every autoimmune you know comes from intestinal permeability. There are other drivers like alcohol and medication and casein in milk, for example, but this is by far the biggest, the grains. So if you want to heal your gut, and that's job number one for being optimally healthy for as long as you can. The issue with this is that grains are not the only compounds or plants that contain lectins. All plants contain different types of lectins in the form of phytohemagglutinins. Every plant's version is different, but they're all types of lectins that can cause intestinal permeability. So things like tomatoes, bell peppers, these can also be big contributors. And like if we live in a keto diet, things like cauliflower, they can contribute to things like that. So I'm not saying don't eat them. Just be mindful that there's nothing of any nutritional value in your broccoli or cauliflower whatsoever. We always need to be thinking protein and fat. If we look at the cell, any cell in your body, and it does vary, but typically the majority of it is water. The next predominator is protein, then fat, with sugar being very, very low, and the rest are things like nucleic acids and electrolytes and so on and so forth. So if we look at nitrogen isotope testing basically reveals an animal's level of carnivory, how much meat that they eat. A rabbit is around 3 to 7%, a fox is somewhere in the middle, a lion and tiger is 6 to 12. Man is above all of these, so we're more carnivore than lions.
How? That's all they eat? Isn't that all they eat?
Yeah, but because we used to eat not just...
It's not the percentage of meat they eat, right?
It's the trophic level, yeah.
Is it what?
It's the level of the nitrogen isotope essentially that's in there. But basically it means that we would have had, anytime we had access to animal proteins, that's what we would have eaten. We would have consumed other compounds, but we were certainly meat eaters. So when we say that we're hunter-gatherers, that's not like strictly true. When we had access to animal protein, like when we caught an animal, that's what we'd be eating.
Yeah.
But the reason that ours is higher is because we consumed other carnivores. So you know, we didn't just eat meat, we consumed other apex predators. So we know that we're essentially meat-based at the very least. Telomeres, so we mentioned the chromosome earlier. A telomere is the protective cap on the end of your chromosome. And it's believed that lifespan is reduced when the telomeres are... There's a lot more to this, but...
I went down that rabbit hole. Like, there's this new thing that's like, apparently it affects your telomeres or reverses your telomeres unthreading, right? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100. So basically, every time the cell divides, you cause a reduction in the length of the telomere, which basically drives or is a part of the age. It's a lot. It is a lot more complex than that, but from a simple perspective. So from a simple perspective, what we want to do is reduce the reduction of the telomere, or we want it to grow. So compounds can allow it to grow, but from the food kingdom, I have a guess on the one thing that exists that allows us to increase the length of the telomere. Red meat. Red meat is the only thing. Study after study after study shows that red meat increases the length of the telomere, yet you're told not to consume the red meat. So if you want to live longer, you basically eat red meat. So what slide are we on? So we're on 75, I got 111 altogether, right? So I'll try to get these through these as quick as we can. As long as they're not boring you. So look, animal proteins literally contain everything that we need, not just to survive, but thrive. There is an argument for iodine and other things, but we'll get into this if we want. But essentially, these are compounds that we can't live without. These are things that I've put down essential for optimal health. I would argue they're essential for life, but what I mean by that is that if you don't consume these compounds in the right quantities, it's going to reduce your lifespan dramatically. So these are things that we need to be optimally healthy for the longest period that we can. All of these are found in animal protein. Now, when I click the button, many of these are not found in plants. So what I've just done, I've just removed all of the ones that are not found in plants. Every one that's missing, you cannot get from a plant. So you cannot thrive on just eating plants. If you're eating plants, you need to eat animal proteins. But what if we account for bioavailability of over 50%? Animal proteins are as much as 100% bioavailable. Like most of them range like 97 to 100%, depending on the source and how it's cooked. Most plants contain less than 50%. So when you look at a nutrient in a vegetable and you think, oh, it's got this much in there, well, even if it's got the active form, in most of them,
Flavonoids.
say it again.
That's what about the flavonoids. When you
With
consume the plants with the vitamin C.
So I'm going to get to that.
You get nothing.
Yeah, so 100%. So the niacin, which is B3, is bound to things like niacin. The pyridoxine is bound to pyridoxine glucoside. The folate in plants is in a polyform and not the monoform. So these are all very different things. Plant vitamin mineral or plant vitamin, animal. So one's for a plant and one's for if we're animals, we need to eat animal vitamins and minerals or nutrients essentially. What have I got on the next slide? Is it on there? So yeah, vitamin C competes with GLUT4. So one of the pathways that we use for glycolysis is the GLUT4 transporter. The reason that we need so much vitamin C is because we consume so much glucose or carbohydrate. When you reduce carbohydrate, your requirement for the vitamin C comes down because there's less competition. There are other transporters, but the majority go through this. Vitamin C is also used to convert non-heme iron by reducing ferric iron to its ferrous iron. So when we were talking about the spinach, so that's what vitamin C does. Vitamin C allows us to convert a small amount of the iron essentially in spinach into its active form, but we need vitamin C to do that. And it's also used in carnitine synthesis. But the thing is, if you're low carb, well, you don't need as much vitamin C because you're not overexpressing GLUT4. We're getting plenty of iron from the animal proteins, and animal proteins are full of carnitine. So our requirement for plant compounds is 0.
Rich, what about fibre?
So I think I've got fibre in. I've got fibre in somewhere. Let's quickly get into energy pathways. I won't bore you too much with this, but glycolysis is the process of breaking down sugar into pyruvate for energy. This is the pathway it goes through. You don't need to remember this, right? Just remember that most of this happens outside of the mitochondria, okay? So glucose, glycolysis, pyruvate, it's transported into the mitochondria. We make this, acetyl-CoA, and then we make energy, essentially. Try not to fall over, Rich. The problem with this is that when we consume carbohydrate, we increase a hormone called lipoprotein lipase. This breaks these bonds on the glycerol backbone. So at any given time, you have triglycerides running through your body. Glycerol backbone, 3 triglycerides, triglyceride. When you eat carbohydrate, you separate them, you drive them into the fat cell where they join back together. That's what drives fat storage. Eating fat doesn't necessarily drive fat storage. It's insulin. That's what insulin does. It drives fat storage. So if you want to gain weight, you eat, as in fat, you eat carbohydrate. If you were to wake up in the morning and eat a bowl of muesli to give yourself energy to go on your run in order to metabolize stored body fat, you're not going to do that until, at least successfully, until insulin has dropped to an adequate level where your body can do that. So eating carbohydrate before you run or do anything in the gym, if losing body fat is your goal, is absolutely counterintuitive. But there's a double kick in the teeth to this because when insulin is elevated, we block hormone-sensitive lipase. So when insulin is elevated, you're literally blocking your body's ability to lose that body fat, and that's what carbohydrates drive. This is a glucose molecule. I was going to ask you what it was until I realized it was on the bottom. So this is a glucose molecule. This is called a Fischer projection. So it's in its linear form. I don't want to get too technical with this, but they travel through the body in a linear form or a cyclical form. When it's in this form, it's highly prone to glycation, which I'll explain what that is as we go. And it's to do with this. When it's in its linear form, that's where glycation occurs. This leads through a series of steps, basically into something called an advanced glycation end product. So this glycation process leads to something called an Amadori reaction. It's called a Haynes reaction when it's from fruit, but it creates an advanced glycation end product. Have you ever heard of an advanced glycation end product before? Yeah, obviously. Duh. So an advanced glycation end product, or an AGE, they literally drive aging. So that's what sugar does. It literally drives aging. The age binds to the age receptor, also known as the RAGE receptor, activates a number of pathways. One is an inflammatory pathway. So carbohydrates drive inflammation. So too many carbs drive. So I'm not anti-carb. So and I always want to make that clear to people. Like, I'm not anti-carb. I'm just saying that if
Sounds like it.
Quite some time ago. But if you're suffering with inflammation, then like carb is one of the first things that you want to look at.
Yeah.
You know, so you can eat some, you know, if you want to, but you don't have to is the key. So it drives inflammation. But the worst thing is this pathway. Does anybody know what NOx stands for?
No.
Go on, I bet you're going to know. No? No,
It's not nitric oxide?
no, it's not. It's NADPH phagosome oxidase.
Yes. I would never guess that.
So NADPH phagosome. So the NOx pathway drives what we mentioned earlier, the reactive oxygen species or inflammation. This damages the cells, it damages your cholesterol, so again the driver of cardiovascular disease, and it damages your DNA, which remember in the beginning, what makes you is that protein synthesis, and it all comes back to the DNA. Glucose literally damages your DNA, and we've shown that the plant compounds are damaging your DNA, and it's also damaging all of these other cells in your body when abused and overconsumed. So what happens over time is it drives to what we know and call an insulin resistant state. So if you were to go to the doctor and measure your blood glucose in all of you is probably in an optimal range. But what the doctor doesn't test is the insulin that's working overtime behind the scenes. So the more sugar that you consume, or the more carb you consume, the more insulin required to drive that blood glucose down to keep it in an optimal range. So your insulin's doing this, while your blood glucose is doing that. But this is what the doctor's measuring. So behind the scenes, this is increasing, constantly driving this down. When it can't work any longer, your blood glucose starts to increase. Now you're diagnosed with pre-diabetes and diabetes. But this has been going on for 10 to 15 years. So you could test today and you could show as being perfectly healthy, but behind the scenes, this is what's happening.
Is that why people that are super diabetic, they prescribe insulin to them and they have to inject
Yeah,
it?
yeah, because they need more. But the body is basically like, you know...
They can't produce it, right?
It's not that it can't, it stops producing it. Because when you take insulin or things like metformin, it forces, so I'll get into this really, really briefly. So we've got a cell, and the cell has become too full. So it's too full of fat, essentially. It doesn't want to put any more in because it's going to burst.
Okay.
It's going to become toxic. So the cell pulls in that GLUT4 transporter that we mentioned, so the cell cannot take any more sugar. What the drugs do, like metformin, is they force the translocation of that transporter to the surface, forcing the sugar into the cell. But the cell is like, fuck, I don't want this shit. So you're forcing it. So your blood glucose levels look good, but you're making the cell toxic. Your body's really intuitive. It's really intelligent. It's stopping that process from happening because the cell is going to explode. And then we've got a whole host of problems. That's why diabetic drugs are not the key for diabetes.
Yeah.
Diabetes isn't an insulin problem, it's a glucose problem.
That to Prof Noakes, because I heard that he still...
I did.
He still takes metformin.
I did. I mentioned it in the talk. Because I know that he was, at the time, he was on metformin, and he's told me that since he's gone carnivore, he's managed to reduce. So now he understands that it's not always like this equals this.
There's one more point, I think, from your previous slide, that the high insulin itself is very
Damaging, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
It's meant to be permanently high.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Can you test your own insulin with a home kit, or do you have to get that done?
I don't know, but you can get it tested privately. The doctors won't do it because it's expensive. I've never looked at a home test. You can test intestinal permeability though.
So if you get to fasting, your morning before breakfast, insulin and glucose, then you have much more data than you will ever get from just glucose. Then you don't really know. If you have a very
Go on,
strong
fire away.
pancreas, it won't show.
A lot of longevity pioneers,
They push insulin.
they use metformin
Yeah.
on non-workout.
Yeah. Well, that again, so that's just forcing the glucose in. So what they're doing effectively is they take a metformin to reduce the glucose levels because glucose is essential. We need it, but we make the glucose. And I've got a couple of slides on this. But what we don't want is too much. So they're eating. They promote high carb lifestyles because they still promote grains and certain fruits. So their blood glucose is too high. So they take the metformin, and now they say, "Oh, now I'm in an optimal range."
So it's not necessary when you...
So just remove the carb. So it's.
We did 3 measurements this morning on 2 random people and one on me. I was 3.4, one was 2.8, one was 2.7. That was the glucose measurement. And just from changing the food.
The food, yeah.
And this would be called hypoglycemic.
Guys, see me on anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's
So that whole line, like Richard said, it's just insane.
You're taking something.
And then eat the medicine to compensate for it. It's essentially it.
Yeah, effectively, they're taking a compound to mitigate the negative effects of something that they're doing. But that's not, they're taking a drug. It's like going to the doctor and, you have inflammation. So the doctor gives you an anti-inflammatory. If you go in with a headache, they might give you, or let's say depression, they'll give you an antidepressant. If you go in with anxiety, it's an anti-anxiety medication. What they don't do is look at the root cause. Well, what's caused your inflammation? Well, I've hit my thumb with a hammer. Right, well, don't fucking hit you. Use anti-inflammatories. Don't hit your thumb with a hammer would be the thing moving forward. But what's causing the anxiety? What's causing the depression? What's causing the other inflammation? And it's always to do with our environment, but the food that we eat. What we eat is the main. What we put in is what we get out. Like you can't fuel your F1 race car on fucking red diesel. You need the optimal fuel for your engine, and we are like super efficient pieces of equipment. We need the best quality fuel. And that comes from animal proteins. It doesn't come from plants. Plants are medicines.
Rich, just a quick one on that. I've been meaning to touch on this one with you for a while because people that know a little bit about human physiology and nutrition are on the other side. When you have this conversation about gluconeogenesis, they also come back with the same argument.
That it's a stress pathway?
No, that like your body also produces cholesterol on demand if you don't consume enough.
Yeah.
So I've had that thrown back at me a few times with people that are quite knowledgeable, but more on the plant-based side.
Yeah, but the cholesterol then has been, like again, your body makes enough glucose, but cholesterol is good for you.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the counter argument because their argument is that it's bad for you. But we know it's good.
You usually get the argument, well, it's the moderation thing. You should have, a little bit of both maybe, but not too much of either.
Yeah, but then like your body, it's intuitive, isn't it? It knows the pathways. Sorry, Al, how much time have we got?
How long do you want?
Right, we'll smash through these now. There's a couple of other bits. As long as you. So glutamic excitotoxin. So when insulin is over elevated for too long and we're in that state, it drives something called glutamate excitotoxicity, which damages the DNA, drives multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, depression, anxiety, and this fuels then the overconsumption of more plant compounds. So that's what glycolysis is effectively driving. So the other energy source or source of creating energy is beta oxidation. That's what we use, fat for fuel. Different to the glycolysis that we saw. So this happens in the mitochondria because the fat which is there just transfuses or diffuses into the mitochondria seamlessly. It does it with no effort, whereas we need transporters for the glucose, which tells me that this is more of a body's natural process. The cell, the mitochondria is covered in the fat that it needs constantly. So it's there available and far less steps to create the same thing. Your glucose created acetyl-CoA, your fat has created acetyl-CoA, and then we enter the citric acid cycle. But we'll get more into this as we go. So what type of fat? Well, we mentioned vegetable oils earlier. Well, seed oils, they cause that oxidative damage. They cause the oxidative stress. They're very high in a compound called linoleic acid, which is an oxidized omega-6. Damages your liver, causes damage in the cells. As Frank will tell you, it'll stay in the cardiolipin in the mitochondria for a minimum of 2 years. You did an awesome post on it recently, but as long as 8. It can cause this damage for a number of years in the body, but it can stay in the body, causing issues for many, many years after you consume it. So whatever you consume today is potentially still causing issues as we go further down the line. And again, it comes back to that issue that we mentioned called cytosterolemia. So this is my argument when people say, well, vegetable oils reduce cholesterol and therefore they're very healthy. Well, they're clearly not, because they're the main driver of cardiovascular disease. Again, someone who suffers with this can't remove it quick enough. This is the reason you burn in the sun. The vegetable oils are the biggest contributor. So when the UV rays hit the skin, that's how we make vitamin D, the proper form of vitamin D. The vitamin D acts as a sunscreen, protects you from the sun, and then vitamin D carries on through the rest of the body, the liver and the kidney, doing its other hormonal work. But it acts as a sunscreen. But what happens is, if your cholesterol is low, and you've been consuming vegetable oils, it lacks, so this is why it lowers cholesterol, because the molecules from vegetable oils look so close to human cholesterol that the body stops making your own cholesterol. So this is why the numbers fall, which isn't a good thing. That's not the cause of cardiovascular disease. They're in the cells in your body, in the mitochondria and in the skin. The UV rays hit the oil, it literally burns, and it causes, and it's the driver of skin cancer. I no longer burn in the sun. Like, I used to be as white as paper. I don't put tanning lotion on. There's more cancer-causing chemicals in sun lotion, sunblock, than there is, this is something we've been exposed to for God knows how long.
I have not.
So I no longer burn. And, you can attest to this. Many of you can also attest this. You're in the sun. You may go red, but we don't burn. But it's the seed oils that drive the skin cancer and the burning.
What's the difference?
Well, your body can't make, so we need cholesterol to make the vitamin D.
What's the difference of going red and burning? I thought going red is burning.
Well, when you go red, you can.
You can see my forehead's red, but it's like it doesn't hurt. Whereas it's 2 years ago before I started.
First degree burn, a second degree burn, a third degree burn.
No, but it's cytotoxic chemicals that get released in that area. So the inflammation reaction when you consume the seed oils is completely separate.
Of course, we
from
could
the actual adaptation to the sunlight.
We could burn if we're exposed to Dubai heat.
Oh, of course you could. If you're out there with your top off all day, mid-sun.
Exactly, but we burn less.
Said he couldn't burn, and
For sure.
Yeah, I said I couldn't burn, and then I burned.
For sure, we burn less.
Oh, 100%. Like, I used to go beetroot red. I would peel, and I'd be, no word about it, I'd be as white as my shirt. And now, I don't burn.
I was wondering why I didn't peel already.
Yeah. So seed oils are the main driver. So saturated fats are more stable. They're less prone to oxidation because they don't contain the double bonds like the other oils and things do. So when we're talking about saturated fats, you're talking like animal fats and fats that are hard at room temperature. They're the best fats that we can eat. And then there's a third fuel source. So we've got glycolysis, beta oxidation, then we have ketogenesis. Ketogenesis is the process where the liver produces ketones or ketone bodies from the fatty acids during a low insulin state. So again, it always comes back to keeping that insulin low. And again, the fatty acids travel in, we go through beta oxidation. Now this builds up. Instead of entering this cycle, because we need to make sugar or glucose, the body will use some of this pathway to create oxaloacetate for gluconeogenesis, which means that this builds up. This is then what drives ketone production, and it can help with cholesterol production and so on and so forth. Although, believe it or not, there's never been a study which has proven consuming saturated fats increase your cholesterol. And I would argue that you can't force your cholesterol to be increased, but you can allow it to go back to its natural physiological level when you remove the seed oils. So when you take the seed oils out, and this is why people who go keto and carnivore will report their cholesterol going higher, it's not that it's going high, it's going back to its natural physiological level. The thing with the ketones is that it makes this BHB. BHB itself reduces inflammation. So it literally blocks inflammatory pathways. So when you're ketogenic, you block inflammation, reduces hunger, so it's easier to lose body fat, increases insulin sensitivity, which drives all of that fat burning process, reverses aging, increases the function of the mitochondria, athletic performance. It supplies superior energy to the brain, the body, and the heart. So we know that in the right circumstance, your brain can be fueled by 95% of ketones. But a doctor will tell you that the brain needs glucose. But again, we make glucose, which we'll get into. It improves mental health, and obviously it's the best thing for fat loss.
Question, just really fast, and it's just a little silly because I'm new to it, but what exactly would be ketone? Like how many grams of carbs?
I would recommend like 20 grams or less. It's different with everyone. I work with clients who can consume 50 to 60.
Okay, and is that still okay or no?
It depends. Like what I would say is to gravitate slowly. So remember that slide, which I've got another one coming up actually, which shows those incremental changes. I would aim to go, I wouldn't go straight carnivore. I wouldn't recommend anybody does that because of the adaptation processes and the gut microbiome. I would go low carb keto and just become over a series of weeks and months stricter,
Low carb being defined as under 40, 50?
Yeah, if you're starting low carb, I go 40 to 50.
Okay.
We measured,
Can you still be in ketosis if you're taking carbs, or do you have to
Yeah.
do like zero carbs?
No, you can be, but what you'll find is you start on like 40 to 50 grams, and then you feel so good that you want to feel better, so you reduce further, and then you start looking for things that have less carbs, and before long, hey, how we doing, man? And then before long, you're on like zero.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm asking because, like, for example, I use honey as like a pre-workout, so
Yeah.
that's obviously like my biggest source of carb.
Yeah, but again, you're using that for energy. So when you're fully adapted, like you wouldn't need it because of the ketones. But during the transition, I would keep that in, especially for like explosive movements and stuff. So what we find with the endurance athletes is they still need some sugar initially for the hills and the sprints, but their body adapts to the other stuff really quickly. So keep a little in, like honey's all right. Go for like raw and locally sourced if you can. But yeah. Honey's like, I mean, it is natural. I can't consume it. It causes inflammation in my throat. But a lot of people seem to get on really well with it. If you're looking for like another healthy, well, let me rephrase that. If you're looking for another least toxic carb, depending on which angle you come from, white rice is lectin free, but it's higher in arsenic, so pick your poison. But you know, that could be an option. Yeah.
Another rat.
But honey, yeah. The thing with fruit is the fructose actually causes a reduction in the cell's ability to create energy. So
it's worth investing in a good honey though. Like raw's got the enzyme in it, and normal honey that isn't organic is usually riddled with glyphosate because the bees go everywhere and they're just like picking up pesticides.
Another danger
Just
also.
buy a good quality one. Raw is always best.
There's another danger with honey. It's the most cheated food source in the world, right?
Counterfeit,
So you really need to know the farmer more or less and go and pick it up on his side.
Pasteurised, organic. Olive oil is another one, counterfeit. Most in the world.
yeah, let's skip a couple of those sides, they get a bit technical. But as we just said, up to 95% of the brain's energy can be supplied by ketones given enough time to upregulate, and that's what those studies were showing. So every study that you see where people say that it doesn't work, it's because they never give it enough time to upregulate. The more consistent you are, you know, the quicker you upregulate.
In a previous slide, you also showed like glucogenesis creates glucose
Yeah.
while producing ketones.
Yeah.
So, like, we can still go.
Yeah. So your requirement for carb is 0.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is effectively what I was presenting to show that like we literally, in fact, we've got a slide on gluconeogenesis as we come down, but our requirement for exogenous is 0. When I was running, I did a test. I wore a continuous glucose monitor. 16 hours fasted, so I haven't eaten for 16 hours. Turned up at a race. I'm 0 carb. My blood glucose was bouncing between 5 and 5.5 that morning. Because of the dawn phenomenon, so your blood glucose is higher in the morning. Plus, the longer you live the lifestyle, there are reasons that would increase. But when I ran, so I had all the data, my blood glucose went up to just under 18, which basically means my body produced like a shit ton of glucose. Like there it is, yeah. Well done.
When you did it,
Yeah.
without consuming any glucose.
So like it just shot, and basically after the race, and it just recovered. So that is more glucose than a carb athlete can put in exogenous. So they're all taking energy gels and glucose gels, and my body just did it naturally. You know, so it's
That's nice.
All full ketone.
Beautiful.
yeah. So your body makes it. So the longer you adapt,
It was fasted keto.
Fasted, yeah.
Even extreme, yeah. Right.
But
No.
is that an emergency production from the body, or will it always do that?
so we've measured this with Ironman athletes who compete in an Ironman event, and they do it 0 carb. There is an argument where you may perform better in certain circumstances.
I think
But-
the question is like, does the body get induced to do that under high stress, or
So if you were to speak to a doctor that understands gluconeogenesis, they'll tell you that it's a stress pathway, because if you're on carb and your body needs glucose, it will make it through gluconeogenesis, but it will cost you muscle. So you will use the amino acids in your muscle. Mine doesn't. Like that's why I can don't have to train for like months and months at a time, and like I'm obviously getting smaller because I'm losing muscle, but I don't need to do much to maintain.
Is that because of the upregulation of you being longer term?
Yeah, because when you're fully adapted, your body doesn't do it through cortisol. It does it through different pathways like glucagon and.
I have to push my body like to the max?
So
or
you-
failure, pretty much.
You just need to be consistent. So yeah, so it takes time. You can force it to adapt quicker, but it can take as long as a year to fully upregulate. But the benefits, you'll see benefits all the way along the line. Like when I was at 76 kilo, when I was bodybuilding, let's have a look. My bench press, I'll put this into pounds for you. My bench press was 165k, so that's 363 pound on the bench at 76 kilos.
Well, that's like 5 times your weight.
No, it's not quite, is it? It's 4.
4 times?
4, yeah. My deadlift was 506 at 70 odd kilo. So it 7140, 2 point something, isn't it?
Oh, I was thinking pounds. Pounds, my bad. Yeah, like 300 something pounds.
Yeah, but at like 140 odd pound.
Yeah, double body weight. Yeah, that's right.
But I can, even though now, like I've done very little training. Last time I trained, which was like probably a month or 2 ago, I managed to rep 110 kilos for like sets of 8. So 242. And I went up to 130 for like a single rep. So I'm 30 kilos off my top, but I'm lighter now because I'm not bodybuilder, and I literally haven't done any training for months. My legs, which are tiny, like the tops grew really well. My carbs are like I've got high carbs, so they're a non-responder. But like I could squat 190 kilo, and on the leg press, I think we were pushing like 700 kilo for sets on the leg press. So it's like for someone who weighed 70 odd. So it's basically the power's there, the strength is there, but I was on zero carb, But my body doesn't lose the muscle like somebody on glycolysis or fueled by sugar would lose, because it's that gluconeogenesis is activated through different pathways. So it's a non-stress pathway. So it's not stress induced, is what I'm saying. So you adapt into that, it just becomes a natural physiological state. That's how my body makes glucose without me having to consume any. And I consume like very little carb. Is this worth looking at? So basically, this is a slide talking about how much glucose that we actually need. So that based on 25 trillion cells, and we know the molecular weight of glucose is 180 grams per mole. The total requirement for the red blood cells is between 9 to 13.5 grams of glucose each day. And we know from the previous slide, which I didn't show you, but basically with energy production, we need 3 to 9 teaspoons of sugar each day. At any given time, you've got 1 teaspoon in circulation. So a bowl, 100 grams of muesli, which contains around 80 grams of carb, divide by 4 is 20 teaspoons of sugar. That 100 grams of muesli or Weetabix or cornflakes or your breakfast cereal is overloading your blood sugar by 20 times, and you haven't even started your day yet. Like, that's scary, isn't it? And then we chop up bananas and have fruit with that. So that's adding sugar to your sugar. Yeah, orange juice. So we're constantly overloading, and then we crash because we've become hypoglycemic. So we reach for more sugar to pull us back up. Yeah. But again, there's nothing of any nutritional value in breakfast cereal. It's pure sugar. There's no protein, there's no fat. So the question is, like, where do we get this thing? And as I've just mentioned, we make over 20 teaspoons each day without even doing anything. And that's basically that's the difference between exogenous carb and endogenous carb. And this is the slide, the glucose. So basically, it's similar to glycolysis. It's almost identical, bar 1 or 2 enzymes. So glycolysis is where we use carbohydrate to make pyruvate, and gluconeogenesis, we send this basically backwards and we make glucose. So another thing that any of you'll definitely test this, I know Frank can, and definitely Paul can attest to this when we're training, and no doubt Al, we don't feel the burn any longer. So when you go to the gym and you're like, oh, I want to feel the burn, that burn shows an inefficiency in your muscle. That shows an inefficiency of your body's ability to buffer the hydrogen ions. So basically lactate builds up. Yeah. So we call it lactic acid, but it's not lactic acid, it's lactate. That builds up and burns, and then you can't do any more reps. But that shows an inefficiency.
More reps are trying to failure. Of course, it's muscle failure. So it's not lactic build-up.
Yeah. So basically, you instead of doing like say 12 reps like you would with the burn, you do like 3 or 4. But it just gets to the point where you literally just can't lift anymore. So you get an extra 3 or 4 reps. Yeah. For example, but think of that as an accumulative effect.
More muscle.
So basically more effort. So this is why.
So feeling the pump is just like bad then, right?
Say it again.
Feeling the pump is like
Of course it is, yeah.
efficiency.
Yeah.
That used to be my biggest indicator. It's like until a fucking burn.
You can feel pumped without feeding the burn, but feeding the burn is an inefficiency.
Wow.
So basically, the human requirement, at least the daily human requirement for exogenous glucose is 0. But there are circumstances in which the body may require glucose, i.e. from an exogenous source. I've mentioned, like, this is a stress pathway. So if you suffer with damage to your pituitary, if you're overtraining, basically we prevent the body's ability to create specific compounds because we block essentially this pathway. We block the negative feedback loop. So there could be a requirement from that. And I do have another, but we'll get into this. So Paul mentioned Frank said about the fiber. So we don't need fiber. Fiber's damage into the body. It's roughage. It literally scars and damages the intestines. Few of us know people within this who suffer with colostomy bags through over-consuming plant compounds. Fiber, we're told that we need it to feed like the gut microbiome because it contains butyrate. So that's a big argument. But meat contains different forms of butyrate. So butyrate is a short-chain fatty acid. But what happens when you consume the fiber binds to the colonocytes in the gut and it feeds that colonocyte. When we're ketogenic, we make beta-hydroxybutyrate. That fiber that's on the colonocyte needs to further break down into that beta-hydroxybutyrate. But you and I, because we're ketogenic, we have the BHB running through the veins. So we literally feed every colonocyte and not the colonocyte it comes in contact with. But interestingly, the animal proteins contain other short-chain fatty acids like isobutyrate, isovalerate, and propionate, which are different types of short-chain fatty acids, which feed the colonocyte at a higher level than the fiber or the butyrate from plants. So we can get into fiber again and again and again. But every argument, like I haven't eaten fiber for over a decade, and as you can see, I'm really sick and unhealthy. Yeah. So
if you would reinterpret the mainstream, then that means the fiber response from the body to produce through the microbiome in the gut is a stress response when you don't have proper food, right?
Yeah, I think so. But we know that it damages the intestinal wall. It's
absolutely.
So that's what drives. Yeah, cool. We need So the other thing, we'll get into this really quickly. So again, a couple of us were talking about this earlier in regards to like locally sourced seasonal fruit. So like, again, I don't teach low carb, I don't teach carnivore, I don't teach keto. What I teach is real nutrition. And what I found was 2 years ago, a couple of clients I was working with came to me. And in fact, one of them was Lauren, so my partner, strict carnivore. She's in the Healing Humanity documentary, which has just been released in the States, coming to the UK soon. So she, strict carnivore. She started to suffer with cravings for sugar. And she started to feel lethargic and not well, so she increased the fat. That's what everybody tells you to do on carnivore, increase the fat. So we did that didn't work. She increased the protein, that didn't work. So she dropped the fat, that didn't work. She dropped the protein. We tried everything, nothing worked. So I said, look, if your body's telling you to put sugar in, let's put it in and see what happens. So we went for locally sourced, like seasonal fruit and honey. So she put that in, instantly felt better. Like, night and day difference. Interestingly, 4 other clients that I was working with who didn't know about this came to me with the same thing. So I recommended they do the same thing. And they were like, what the fuck, you're telling me to put fruit in? Well, look, let's just see where it goes. So we put that in, and without speaking together, so none of these clients knew each other, after a certain period, they all came off the fruit. And the reason is that time in the UK was like record high temperatures, and we had very, very high UV index. So we were basically exposed to sun that we're not used to. And the reason that's a problem is UV increases melanin, which reduces reactive oxygen species. Now we know reactive oxygen species, like we're told, is bad, but it's only bad when it's too high. But because we're carnivore, we don't have as much reactive oxygen species. Now reactive oxygen species is essential. We need some, just like insulin, just like glucose, all of these things, cortisol, that we're told are bad for us. We need some, but we need them operating between the correct upper and lower limit. We need the right amount. So this drove their reactive oxygen species down, and now they're in a state called reductive stress. And the fruit caused reactive oxygen species. Remember that graph I showed you earlier with the reactive oxygen species with the NOx pathway? The fruit causes the reactive oxygen species, which pull them back into an optimal state, which is why I think locally sourced seasonal fruit and vegetables. So basically, in the summer, I think it's okay if you want to, and you live in an ancestral lifestyle. And I think that's how we would have done it through our, our ancestral process.
This amount,
And again,
the poison's in the dust.
yeah. So, and again, but there's a reason that we've put it in. So every one of them came off the fruit, off their own, off their own backs, not speaking to anyone. And again, it's happened like recently. So we've been traveling a lot and we've been in high UV index a lot. And now she's had to put some honey back in. But what happened is after too long of consuming the fruit and the honey, started to cause reactions like spots and blisters and skin conditions, and not feeling that it was working so well. So I'm not against fruit, I'm not against carb. I think everything is there to be consumed as and when that we need to. So coming back to this, again, if any of you want to go deeper into this, this is the path that I took. Again, low carb, dirty keto, all the way up to being strict carnivore.
You did cyclical keto as well.
I did, yeah.
Especially for the shows.
So I would carb load like for 2 days before. But generally, as a rule of thumb now, I don't consume carbohydrate ever.
I use it as a tool, and that's what I teach.
Yeah.
It's not a binge, it's not a treat.
And you can manage it.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't go. But for the clients that are addicted, I don't.
But again, so what we're doing is we're doing these, aren't we?
Yeah.
Which is fantastic, because if your clients can do that for a couple of years, like you're already winning. Then, once you're adapted, you can make the decision. And it seems to be a natural progression, doesn't it?
For 2 years.
Yeah. I think we should put you on strict carnivore and see what happens as a test. And I think we should do it on a podcast.
Do 30 days.
If you're up for that.
Okay, only start.
Let's just do.
I've already told them about that.
Let's just do 30. So, given that,
I'll do it.
there we are. We'll do that.
I'll do it. We'll make a podcast.
Right. So this is pretty much the last side. So carnivore, again, the argument that I put forward is the ultimate version of the ketogenic lifestyle.
Yeah.
So whether it is or not,
Yeah.
you decide.
Yeah.
All done. That's 111 slides.